It doesn't make any sense. Why would somebody be selling $1 million house for $100,000?
Who knows? A divorce, loan sharks, a scandal. The point is you get to capitalize on another human being's misfortune. That's the basis of real estate.
Hell yeah.
And that is Walter Fielding and the characters of Walter Fielding and Jack Schnittman from The Money Pit, one of our favorite real estate movies. And with that, we're back. Welcome to the House Einstein podcast. And I am Osman Parvez. With me is Hamish Crabb.
Hello, hello. Good to be with you here today.
And we are excited that you are here with us today. It's been a few weeks since we've had the pod. Thank you for your patience in our absence.
Much appreciated. And we're excited to be bringing you the latest in podcasts again.
Weekly. Well, the best podcast in real estate that exists, the most entertaining. And that's actually what we... The first and only podcast in real estate. Yeah. That seems pretty doubtful, but I think I'll let you claim that. I'm going to just claim we're the best in real estate podcasting. And our mission, frankly, is to entertain you. Our attorneys would like us to emphasize that this podcast is entertainment. If you are making any serious decisions, please consult your real estate professional when it comes to purchasing or selling real estate or making any other financial decision or life decision. Don't take advice from us, even though we've been doing this a long time. And I'm the founder of the House Einstein brokerage. Our mission at House Einstein is to help you make a smarter real estate decision. If that interests you, check us out at houseeinstein.com. And let's get to the topics.
Yeah. I think we've got a pretty decent lineup. Some of it's kind of based in recent experiences, Osman, the closing table.
Yeah. Okay. So our first topic, our core topic, is a segment that we call the closing table. And we're going to be talking about whether it's worth saving a home or not, a historic home that has had many years of neglect. We'll be talking about all sorts of aspects of evaluating a home that has had many, many years, perhaps decades of deferred maintenance, and some of the snafus you might run into. And this comes from a deal that we have recently been involved with and have gone through very deep due diligence on, including stumbling across undisclosed floodplain restrictions and neighbors that have informed us about all sorts of things that the seller didn't, and very deep due diligence. I think it'll be educational for you, particularly if you're considering buying a historic home. Just keep in mind that the restrictions that exist here in Colorado and in the city of Boulder and the overlay of a historic district may not be relevant to you in another jurisdiction. But here in the city of Boulder, these particular topics are very upfront and present, and things that you should be aware of jumping into a home that, in particularly homes that are either architecturally distinctive and perhaps have a nameplate architect attached to it, or, and I'm thinking mid-century, or homes that are pre-war. You can largely expect to run into quite a bit of, how do you say this? Regulatory...
Oh, okay.
Well, both.
Yeah.
Like, you should expect your due diligence to be 2 to 3 times more extensive if you're doing it right, when compared to buying a newer home, which is pretty straightforward. I mean, in particular, well, we'll get to this. We'll jump into that. But I'll just say that our inspector called in for backup when he got to the house because there was so much going on with this property that he felt it would be best if the owner of the inspection company themselves came in and co-inspected the house with him because there was so much going on. Our next segment is called Tales from the Trenches. We'll be talking about one of our recent closings that literally just closed this week and some of the things that we learned from that deal. And then I'll walk you through market conditions because it's been a while. And we are now in early September. And boy, the market had some surprises last month that you should be aware of. And then our next segment is called Sales of the Week. This is where we carefully curate a handful of recent closings, typically within the last 2 weeks, that we think illustrate certain price points and conditions, things that we've gleaned from the deal notes that we want to share with you. Keep in mind that we cannot discuss active listings. We can only discuss listings that have closed in a public forum like this podcast. If you're interested in active listings and you're actually a serious buyer, you should just reach out to us. We're more than happy to advise you on your real estate purchase as your real estate agent. If you happen to be working with somebody else and have signed a piece of paper that commits you to them, then please just don't call me until you've broken up that relationship, because I cannot advise you if you are in an exclusive relationship with another real estate agent here in Colorado. But otherwise, you can also sign up for our newsletter, and it will be out, Hamish, before the end of this quarter. Our third quarter newsletter is due. Before the fourth quarter begins. I am hell-bent promise to get this out the door. So expect that soon. And in that newsletter, I will talk about active listings, because that newsletter is just to our prospective clients and our close colleagues. It is not a public forum. It is not available publicly. You have to sign up for it. You have to opt in. And the Real Estate Commission and MLS have agreed in my conversations with them, actually not the commission, sorry, just the MLS has agreed that I could talk about active listings in a private newsletter. And yes, I did get into trouble with that a few years ago. Our next segment is called Shameless Self-Promotion. We'll talk about a couple of our clients who are in the market and what they might be looking for. And then we hit on In the News. We'll be talking about the Broncos' new stadium. We'll be talking about new energy code. We'll be talking about bears attacking Boulderites, and we'll be talking about real estate agents that surprisingly tell the truth, and why that's suddenly some sort of salacious news that's on the tabloid fodder that Hamish found as funny articles that sort of like, oh, look, here's an agent actually doing something ethical. Let's it's a news article about ethical agents. So we'll be talking about those. Actually, there's 2 articles. And then we'll wrap up this podcast with our usual Carveouts. And Carveouts, if you're not familiar with what that segment is really just an opportunity for Hamish and I to talk about whatever we might want to talk about. And to tease you a little bit, I'll be talking about my recent travels, which include to a destination known as Black Rock City. And if you want to know more, stick around to the end of the podcast. And Hamish, what are you going to be talking about?
I had a brief brush with a very tempting morning beverage that I will get into further detail with, but it almost became my morning go-to replacement for a coffee.
Wow.
And contains
a morning
alcohol.
Beverage. It does not, or does contain alcohol.
It does, yeah.
You considered a morning beverage?
It was tempting. It was that good. No.
Not on a work day, right?
Not on a work day, of course not. Absolutely.
You suddenly have a very serious face on. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that'll be it for this particular podcast. So that's our table of contents.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Should we get into it?
Yeah, everything we talk about here we should have, for the most part, linked into the show notes. So whether or not you're listening or watching, you can follow along and click along for the properties and sales of the week, the news articles, and kind of anything else that we bring up in conversation should be in the description.
There you go. And the only sponsor, by the way, of this podcast is the House Einstein brokerage. We are not interested in other sponsors at this time. AG1 does keep knocking on my door, and I keep saying no. Heck
I'll
no, I
drink it
don't
on
want
camera.
I don't want your 30% of every subscription that you sell. And you think real estate agents are expensive, but AG1 will give you 30% referral for every person who signs up. It's a brilliant business model by one of your compatriots, Hamish.
Is it?
A New Zealander. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
no
I think he has been arrested and expelled from the country, but
that'll happen.
I think he's from New Zealand. Yeah. Yeah.
We have Kim.com, I think, still. Do you remember Kim.com?
You do have Kim.com. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Holding on to him. But we just got an FBI office, so that could be subject to change. They opened the FBI office in New Zealand, yeah.
A U.S. FBI office?
Yeah, Kash Patel went down there and did a whole thing. And then it was later found that office had been there for like a couple years before their official announcement. Exciting news in Sheeptown.
Why would the FBI have an office in New Zealand?
Sketchy place down there, man. I couldn't tell you why, but I can share some links on that.
Maybe their agents just want to be in New Zealand, and it's a convenient excuse to take a government flight and spend a week or two on duty on the South Island somewhere.
On business.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get into the closing table.
Yeah. The real meat and potatoes.
The real kale and tofu. This is a Boulder podcast, Hamish.
You're right.
We don't
Right.
meat and potatoes. No. We're cruelty-free kale and tofu.
Freshly pressed tofu. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Organic and cruelty-free.
I've got kind of like a thing to bring it in, I guess.
Okay.
This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more.
Bring it in.
There's Boulder, if you kind of drive around, you'll see a pretty solid mix of like these. Okay, that home was definitely built in the 50s or 60s, and this home has traces of still built in the 50s and 60s, but it's very clearly been remodeled. If you're a buyer looking to acquire in Boulder, how do you determine if a home is worth kind of putting all your time and effort and money into to make it shine again, versus be that original home? Worth saving.
Is it worth saving? So this is the reality of our local market in the city of Boulder, not throughout the county, is that the largest component of value for homes that are priced, let's say, under 1.2 or 1.3 is the land. And the way to think about it, like if you're considering buying a Martin Acres ranch, these are basic 1,000 to 1,200 square foot ranch style homes, all constructed in the mid 1950s. If that's on your radar for what you would like to purchase, it's really hard to get your head around that that's the purchase price until you consider, wait, what's the underlying land worth? And keep in mind that the city is unlikely to stop you from scraping the home. And I say scraping euphemistically because in Boulder you can't actually scrape it. You have to deconstruct it and utilize existing and useful components, including studs in the walls. You are taking the home apart if you're in the city of Boulder, if you're even allowed a demo permit. If you're allowed a demo permit, everything that is still of useful value has to be pulled out of the home. And if you're not going to reuse it in the new project, you have to deliver it to EcoCycle to... Is it still called EcoCycle? I feel like they had a name change.
I'm thinking like Resource Central.
Resource.
But
Yeah.
It is Resource? Okay.
Yeah, it's Resource. It used to be called EcoCycle. EcoCycle is now just the recycling component, and Resource is the resource yard. Sorry, my brain had there was a time I believe these things were actually connected, and they were separated a long time ago. I'm going on memory. Resource
They're laughing
is where
at the bank, though.
Who's laughing?
Resource Central, if they're getting all your,
I think I don't know if they're
maybe.
I don't know if they're laughing, but it's a great place to go if you are looking for inexpensive building supplies. And you can find really quirky and interesting stuff, and often it's priced very nicely, although sometimes it's overpriced. So you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to shop the Resource Yard. It's out there on Arapahoe Avenue. It's a great spot. Go check it out. But the point of bringing that up is that the land on your $1 million purchase might be worth $850, and the house might be worth $150. And in some cases, the house is worth $0. In fact, the house is so far gone that it's worth negative because you have to pay to deconstruct it. So the right price, and I've told my clients this on certain properties, when we go to look at it, they're like, how do we get our head around this price? And I was like, this house is really its land value, but it's less than land value because you have to pay to deconstruct it. So that's what your offer price should be, in my opinion. Unless you're willing to take, is that the right property for you? And typically it's overpriced. So that type of house we would want our clients or advise our clients to sit on, not write an offer until it's well seasoned, because the seller in the first few weeks are unlikely to take such a low offer. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to our lessons of sales of the week, because there's one deal in particular that is textbook strong negotiation skill set. It's not a land deal, but it's definitely, if we're going to talk about negotiation strategy, it mirrors this, waiting the right amount of time and then being aggressive, and also a seller that frankly overpriced it. and probably scared away a lot of potential buyers. So we'll talk about that when we get to that particular deal. But when you're looking at buying a home that has a lot of deferred maintenance, the first question is it worth keeping? And if the home is older than 50 years, technically it gets historic review, which includes all of these mid-century 1950s ranch-style houses that you see all over Boulder. But if it's mid-century and not architecturally distinct, it basically gets a desktop review. I can't remember exactly what the city calls it, but it's more of a formality, the review. And the odds of not getting granted a demo permit or the city taking an active interest in your business is very low. It's not zero, because if somebody that's considered a very important person to the city's history lived in the house, they can also deny permits because the home has historic significance based on who lived there. So keep that in mind. It's not just the fact that it's a 1950s ranch, and typically the city doesn't care about those because we have so many. But if it's pre-war, the city takes a very active interest and is likely to restrict permitting on all sorts of things. And if it's pre-war and in a historic district, you can pretty much assume that you are not allowed to change anything on the front 3 walls of the home. And this is often why you see facades jacked up where the front wall or the front 3 walls are still up in the air. There's also height limits that you will see, like a roof line, like the top of the house is still jacked up there on stilts while the rest of the home is being constructed around it, because if they remove that height, they can't put it back because of the height limits. Like, there's all sorts of shenanigans that when you're walking around Boulder and you see one of these construction projects and you're like, why are they doing this in this weird way? The answer is usually because of the regulatory environment that forces them to retain certain elements, because if they were to ever remove it, they can't put it back.
Right.
So the right answer is, or at least one way to think about this is this a home worth saving? Is it architecturally attractive to you as a buyer? And your agent should also tell you whether or not this is a home that is architecturally distinctive enough to be interesting to other buyers. Because, for example, craftsmen have a lot of demand. But Tudors are a little out of place in Boulder. There's not a lot of Tudor-style houses. And then there's some, Spanish Revival. There's all sorts of other styles that may or may not have market demand. And your agent can act as a backstop for you if you want them to opine on their opinion of how desirable these homes are. But there's clearly a spectrum of how, like Queen Anne's are probably closer to the top end of the spectrum. And then there's some things that are just not that interesting, even though they're technically historic, like mid-century, modern, mass-produced houses that are all over South Boulder.
Developer grade type of deal, yeah.
Yeah, things where they hammered them out, one every week for that entire summer and built the entire neighborhood during that summer, right? That may not be as attractive. And then there's other local factors, like how is this neighborhood perceived by the rest of the community? And also, what is the depth of market for your end product? So if you're buying a historic home and there's no other historic homes near it, and you're going to put $1 million into it or $2 million into it, you're really going to capitalize this thing extensively. Are there other homes that support the value in the neighborhood? There was a seller who just closed, who's a good friend, and who lost at least 200 plus commissions on a recent sale purchase that probably shouldn't have made. But we would have strongly advised him to not buy that house to begin with, because it's an outlier. It is at the top end of the valuations in the neighborhood, and it doesn't look anything like anything else in the neighborhood. So you are going to be perceived as having the expensive rich person house in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're right. Versus if you're buying a home that is one of the least expensive homes in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of higher value homes and people have put a lot of reinvestment capital into these houses, it's a much safer investment. And your agent can help you.
Generally.
Say more.
You said it's a much safer investment. I was like, oh, that's too hard. It's generally a safer investment.
Okay, thank you for softening the language, because I'm not giving you investment advice, but this is something to consider looking at, is how many other homes are in that particular neighborhood that match where you're going to end up after you buy the house and put all the capital into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
My neighborhood, for example, the ceiling is not far off from what I acquired this house for. So as much as I can dream, it just doesn't make any sense to pop the top and get a mountain view going.
But that was never your investment thesis. When you bought your house,
Totally.
as House Einstein's most eligible bachelor, owning your home at your age is fantastic, right?
That's good enough. Yeah.
That's an outlier, but I think my recollection is that that's a likely long-term investment, cash flowing house, not like your forever home.
Yeah, I mean, market decides on that one, but yeah, for the time being, I think it should do fairly well once I'm ready to leave it.
You will be. I guarantee you that you'll be.
I know that.
You will
yeah.
be. Where you will be. It's going to happen. So look at comps in the neighborhood for where you want to end up, and also have a real honest discussion with your agent about the restrictions that are put in place if the home is older than 50 years, and also if it is a home that is of historic significance, it's already been designated historic, or it's in a historic neighborhood. All of that, your agent, if they're competent, should be able to give you some detailed information on. There can be some restrictions here on what you can do, but there also may be some benefits. Like one of the things we discovered in this recent deal in doing our due diligence is some of the neighbors have gotten tax credits for the improvements they've made in their historic homes. The state actually has a fund. It's not a lot of money, and I think it's capped at a rather low amount, but you could actually get a tax credit for remodeling your historic home in the state of Colorado. It's not just limited to Boulder. And they look at it on a case-by-case basis, so your agent should be aware of those things too and be able to help guide you. And what I told our clients was no guarantee. It might be a benefit. It could be a free $10,000, but it could also not happen at all. So don't bank on that. It's a nice to have happen if it happens.
Mm-hmm. Don't factor it into your hard numbers.
Now, Hamish, you added this HOA good, HOA bad bit. So I don't know where you're going with that. Say more.
So without giving too much away about this deal, you mentioned that these neighbors were able to kind of enlighten our buyers on a lot of details that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. These neighbors are also part of this HOA, and give it kind of hand in hands, we're able to give our buyers a really nice insight into how this HOA was managed, the benefits of it, and kind of how the finances were before we even got to write an offer. Are there any maybe in HOAs in Boulder, Osman, that just have a terrible reputation off the bat?
Yeah, well, you know the answer that yes.
Yeah,
well, the first piece is there's some incongruence, because if you're hearing two things, historic home and association, you're right. That's a rare thing to have a historic home that's in an association. And this property is a very, if you heard those two things, I know of only one neighborhood in Boulder that has it, which will give you enough to zero in on what house we're talking about. And I want to be clear, we're not disclosing the location, but this is super rare to have these two things in combination. And in order of due diligence, one of the first things you want to do before you hire your inspector and go meet them at the house to have your inspection, the first thing we always tell our clients to do is go meet the neighbors and ask about what's going on in the neighborhood, ask about the history of the house. If it's in an association, ask how the association works. And have they been happy with it? And what are the benefits? What are the cons? Most association neighborhoods tend to hold their value or appreciate better than neighborhoods that don't have an association, particularly at low and mid levels of the price ladder. At upper ends of the price ladder, it's less likely to have an impact because, well, frankly, those people are less likely to park an RV on the street, right? They're much more sensitive to pissing off their neighbors. That sounds a little judgy, but that's my take. Like, you don't see that so often in Mapleton Hill, for example, but you're much more likely to see. In fact, I remember when I first lived in Martin Acres, there was somebody who bought a city bus at an auction and then parked it on Moorhead in their driveway and managed to squeeze it in the driveway, which is magical. Like, it was pushed up right to the edge of the sidewalk. And I think it was next to the garage in the lawn. And then over time had become like a hoarder thing. Like, they just filled it with old
Martin
newspapers.
Acres.
Yeah. I mean, there was a reason it was called Martian Acres for a long time.
Really?
And I love the neighborhood, right? Because it had so much diversity in it. But this was something that you were probably not going to see on Mapleton Hill, as somebody buying a school,
stuffing an RV,
a city bus, and filling it with old newspapers. Like that, somebody that's probably a hoarder. I don't really know what happened to the bus or what happened to that story. The bus is long gone, but it was there for many years. Cars in the lawn, like collector project cars in the lawn, very common. You don't see that in association neighborhoods because the association will fine you and put a lien on your house if you don't pay the fines if you do these things. So,
Yeah.
and of course, there's all sorts of bad things about associations. Karens that will be there with their binoculars peering through the blinds, looking for when you did or did not pull your trash cans off the street.
Associations that'll take your storage unit because of the seller before you.
That's
Talked
another
about that one
story
briefly.
entirely.
Yep.
So that all affects valuation, but it's less common to see associations and historic homes. So this is sort of an offshoot topic because it's pretty rare you're going to run into those things. But if there's not an association, there could be a historic district that layers on additional rules that you should familiarize yourself with, preferably before you even wrote the offer. But if it happens after the offer, that's fine. Just do it quickly before your inspection period is over. And then let's get to the big crux of what's happening in our current deal and the arm wrestling that has occurred over this. And that is floodplain restrictions on a home that may or may not be worth keeping. And the general principle is that FEMA would like to remove as many homes out of the floodplain, the high hazard floodplains, the 100-year and worse. They would like to remove as many as possible. And what that means in practice is that permits and the opportunity to do an addition have a limitation on square footage and dollars. And generally in the city, and I believe this is true in the county as well, is limited to 50% of the assessed value of the home or 50% of the square footage. And it's the assessed value of the improvements, not the entire home, which can be surprisingly limited because a lot of these homes have more value in the land, according to the tax assessor, than the structure. So if you pull up the tax assessor records and it says, okay, your property's worth $1 million, and you see that the land is worth $750 and the house is worth $250, well, that means your permit's limited to $125, and it's your cumulative permit. Your
cumulative is the catch that shocks
over
me.
time, which includes things like roof permit, mechanical permit for a new furnace, anything, a sidewalk permit, a new fence. If you remodeled it, if the previous owner remodeled it horribly 5 years ago and spent $100,000 doing this horrible hot pink remodel of the kitchen because they thought that's cool, and now you want to tear it all out, even if you stole the house at a great deal, you are subject to the previous owners spending $100,000 on a permitted improvement that you don't even care about. So the 100-year flood in particular, or worse, has a horrible impact on the ability to exercise the potential of the property. And it is really shocking how few agents are aware of this and how often properties are miscategorized on the MLS. And honestly, it can happen to anybody. And the MLS has every single listing sheet, every time you look at the MLS will say information deemed reliable, but not guaranteed. And the reason it says that is because listing mistakes happen. So as part of your due diligence as a buyer, you should be pulling up the flood certification on this property. And you could also just pull up the flood mapping through FEMA or through the City of Boulder. The City of Boulder has great flood maps.
Yeah.
And the city's mapping shows not just FEMA's flood designation, but also shows you the flood extent of 2013. And that can be really useful information. So the reason I'm bringing all of this up is that in this recent deal we were working on, it was marketed as being minimal risk, and it turned out to actually have 100-year floodplain restrictions imposed on it because of a corner of the house is in the 100-year flood, roughly 20%, maybe 25%. And the city building department and lenders treat that as being the entire structure is in the 100-year flood. And so you will be required to get flood insurance if you have a lender. And if you knock on the city's door and ask for a permit, they're going to pull up all the old permits, and they may or may not allow you to have a permit. And in practice, I talked to them about this when the last time I had a listing. Yeah. The last time I had a listing, and I said, what if you need a new roof and you've maxed out all your permits?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you just going to not let us have a new roof? Or what if my hot water heater's gone out? Am I just going to be stuck dealing with
Who
cold
made
water.
this? Yeah.
And their answer was, we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but they wouldn't put it in writing. So the answer to that is, if it's some sort of habitability issue, I suspect they're going to let you slide on needing a permit. And keep in mind, the value creeps up over time. If you,
Case by case feels very like, let's see how the prior communication goes,
And they have a whole logbook on every communication that's happened with this property going back to like the 1960s. Personal notes. At the county, I once went to the county building department, and this is also part of good due diligence. You should go to the building department and pull up the permit history. And we were looking at buying a piece of land up in Nederland, just outside of the city limits. Oh my God, we were shocked at what was in the notes. This was not digital. You had to go to the county at the time. Today, I think they'll allow you to do an online consultation or a video meeting. But at the time, I had to go sit above Mustard's Last Stand and wait, and then sat down with a consultant. And the stuff that started coming out of the records for this property was just mind-blowing. And was it, but wait, not Mustard's Last Stand. I think the county offices are the one on 13th Street. I got confused about location.
Okay.
City is above Mustard's Last Stand. County is on 13th Street, across from Corner Bar. Anyway, just wanted to clarify. I like to be accurate. And
we
so
do know
what came up
somewhat what we're talking about. Yeah.
Sometimes. Hamish, what came up was that the seller at some point, the owner at some point had developed this property by bulldozing a road through other people's properties and then retroactively wanted this road permitted. And these hand notes were just shocking, but they got the road permitted with permission by the neighbors or whatever they had to do. And then the owner of the land was an architect in Florida. He designed a home, and there was a bunch of compromises they had to make on the design of the home, and one of which was he wanted a garage, and he also wanted this giant deck that overlooked Gross Reservoir. And the notes say, deck deleted in exchange for garage. And I don't know what rules existed, why that was required, but that's what he agreed to. And meanwhile, we're looking at the house. It has a beautiful deck. Like, it has the exact deck in the drawings that are X'd out. So basically what happened is that as soon as the permits were closed out, he built the deck that he wanted to build all along. And then on top of that, he also built an entire master bedroom addition that looked like it was sitting on stilts, similar to what you would see on the beach in Florida. Neither of those two structures were permitted, and the big piece of investment, the big component of investment thesis was its potential. We expected to build like a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house on this property within the next decade because of the views. I mean, to die for views, great location. All of this was plus, plus, plus till we hit this snafu, and we realized it was at the time probably a six-figure deconstruction of the primary bedroom and the deck was a selling point. So now how are we going to put a deck back? And we ended up terminating on the property, and I'll save more of that story for another time. But somebody else did buy it for about $70,000 below what we were under contract for at the time, and it took them like 6 more months to find another buyer. We actually probably would have accepted that $70,000 concession, but they didn't want to offer it to us. They just didn't believe that it was a problem.
They needed to feel the pain first. Yeah.
They needed to feel us break up with them and nobody else knock on the door for 4 months. And finally somebody did. And I don't know I've often wondered if they got the full disclosure. And I have a big, thick packet of info on this property because it's sort of one that got away. And I've thought about mailing it to the new owner anonymously, just drop it in the mail, because I spent a lot of time on due diligence. So that's the other piece, by the way. Due diligence is not free. And it takes time, it takes effort. Contractors and inspectors will charge you for their services. And so do the cheap and free due diligence up front. Do the expensive due diligence as you move through the process, and make sure there's enough time. Preferably you give yourself plenty of time, but often what happens is there's so much pressure to get these deals done quickly, and you don't want to lose the house, that you put a pretty tight timeline. And then you have to work with the seller if you need to extend it. But that's better than not getting the house because you put a too long timeline on. Right. So that brings us to the last piece of this closing table topic. Is it worth saving? And some of the testing that you may want to consider doing, particularly for a historic home, includes testing for asbestos, includes testing for mold. Lead-based paint is not uncommon, so it should really be a given. If you're buying something built before 1979, you should expect lead. You should expect lead in something. And then the cost of mitigation is something that's really important to consider, because some mitigation can be a lot more expensive than others. Asbestos in particular is full of, well, scammers. I don't know what else to say, but it's the worst of them. Like, you see the contractors showing up with like giant, really 6-figure pickup trucks that have blinged out wheels and huge shiny belt buckles.
The other day, yeah,
and like lizard skin boots, like the things I've seen the contractors wearing for asbestos mitigation.
Cowboys.
It's ridiculous. Like yeah, urban cowboys. It's clearly the most profitable and fraud laden. Oh boy, I'm probably going to get like angry asbestos mitigation companies now, but that's been my personal experience, that you got to be really careful with who you choose to do your mitigation on asbestos. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking about buying a historic home, the equation is, first and foremost, are you the right buyer for this home? Like, are you the person willing to do all this work? Yeah. Do you have a budget to do all this work? Are you realistic about the cost of doing all this work in the city of Boulder? Have you gotten real estimates so that you're well advised? And then is the end product going to A, suit your needs, and B, not overcapitalize for the neighborhood? And if all of that's true, awesome, we're happy for you. And we'll advise you as your agent to go through that process. But if you're not getting that advice, I don't know, choose a different agent, or at least go in expecting to do all these things, because it's not slightly more due diligence. It's 2 to 3 times the due diligence of a newer home.
Yeah.
And you have to love historic homes, love the process of bringing them back to life and restoring them, and have a really good sense of what that's going to be like, because it's ongoing costs are going to be twice as much to maintain and care for this home. And the community is in your business. Even though it's your private property, they are in your business. If you're buying a historic home in a historic district in the city of Boulder, go in with eyes wide open.
Totally. I like that the community is in your business. And some people really enjoy that. I know there's going to be some listeners that are like, screw that, I want to be an hour out of town. But there's a buyer for everything. So
I love historic homes. I'm just going to say this up front. If I sound down on historic homes, none of that's true. I'm probably one of the younger members of Historic Boulder. And it says something. Leah and I, my wife and I, went to one of their garden parties, and we looked around. We're like, yep, we are like among 5 people that are even remotely in the same age bracket. And of course, Leah is much younger than I am, so she's like, wow. There's a whole different demographic that we joined, but it's an incredible organization. I'm very much in support of Historic Boulder, and I love historic homes. But what I know very clearly is they are not for everybody, and it really, you have to be a historic home person or not. If you're not, then go perhaps to Prospect and look at buying a home that looks historic, but was actually built 20 years ago. Like, has some of the same design elements, like a craftsman style home or a Victorian style home, but is not really a craftsman or a Victorian, because they fixed all the deficits. The small closets are gone. It's 3 times the size of an actual historic home. And you'll get the feeling of a historic home without any of the pain of a historic home.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And we talk about a Prospect home a little bit later in the pod too.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you feel complete?
I feel complete. Like, we've talked about this with my therapist, and now our conversation's complete.
You're resolved. We've got the closure.
We got the closure we needed on.
I mean, short answer, we can't tell you if it's worth saving, but we can certainly help you figure that out for yourself. Right.
I guess there's one piece missing, and that is, how do you negotiate? And we're very much in an active deal environment, so I can't say too much, but I will say that my style is to document what the costs are going to be, and then try to separate what was the expected budget from what are new surprises, right? Like, you should expect that the house doesn't have foundation repairs that are necessary. You should expect that the sewer line works. You should expect that there's at least, 10 years left on the life of the roof. And you should expect that any of the work that's been done in the home, at least in the last 20 years or so, was done with a permit and done safely. And, as for
to a code,
at least to code, and you should expect that there's not actively deteriorating asbestos in the home, and that the home is generally free of mold, right? Those are kind of expectations that I think are fair. The home can be really dated, totally dated. The windows are shot. It's like everything looks like it's a museum from the 1950s or whatever year the home was built. But that's fine, but if it has these things that are the result of neglect and deferred maintenance that are indeed surprises, this is the key. Are they new discoveries, or was it visible and obvious when you wrote the offer? If it wasn't visible and obvious, I think it's fair to have a conversation and try to work something out with the seller. And our approach is to document it, present it professionally. Of course, first make sure our client really wants it after doing all their due diligence. If they don't want it, just terminate. Because you're not, there's really, yes, you could send all of that over to the other side, which then forces them to disclose. It's not a nice thing to do, but arguably it's the ethical thing to do, but it's not a nice thing to do. And if you do want to try to work something out, then you really should disclose everything to the seller so that they are aware of it. They are now under a legal and ethical obligation to disclose that to anybody else interested in the house. And now you should work something out. And if you can't work something out, you move on. As I say to my clients all the time, there's always another house. So don't fall in love. I'm not going to be in love. If you don't want this house, that's fine. We'll move on. My job is to represent you as strongly and best as I can, as ethically as I can, to the best of my abilities, in your best interest, and that's it. So we'll do that on as many houses as you want to go through, as long as you too behave ethically and with integrity. We will keep going to the dance.
Yeah. Good note on the negotiation thing. I think we've totally said enough, considering
we've said enough.
Yeah,
an active deal. Well, by the time this publishes, we're likely
we'll know.
We'll know. So I'm okay, and we haven't disclosed the address, and we haven't talked about the other agent. And so far, they've been behaving, by the way, very nicely too, very professionally. No complaints, other than I wish I knew that they didn't work on the weekend. That would have been nice to know before we went active. But that's neither here or there. That's just a surprise.
Agreed.
I know.
Just checking deadlines right now. Yep.
Yeah. Check the deadlines.
Yep.
Okay. So let's move on, Hamish. Let's talk about Tales from the Trenches. Maybe you should kick this one off.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, shouldn't I? Don't want to. I just want to make sure I don't put my foot in it or anything. But we had a recent sale. It was our North Boulder listing, 4585 13th Street. Unit 1C, and my kind of general takeaway is more or less a shout out to the seller for being pretty dang reasonable on the inspection items and working really quickly as much as she can for these items as well. The HOA surprisingly didn't fulfill the stereotype of HOAs and also worked rather quickly and diligently, and ultimately I think it was a pretty good deal and a pretty solid closing. We marketed the shit out of it, constantly making different videos and photos, and we staged it, multiple open houses, and all sorts.
Paid to market it, by the way, not just stuck it on Facebook, but actually boosted it. We advertise. You have to pay to get eyeballs.
Good distinction. I'm used to that at this point, so I didn't even think of that. But good point. Yeah, we don't just send it out into the ether with no backing. We put money behind it, dollars, and set up a kind of a geofence in the general area to get this in front of as many potential eyeball buyers as possible. And so, this was the second offer from the buyers.
Well, let me before you go there, let's back up and let's do a little background on this property. So this is in Uptown Broadway, which is a mixed-use development, and some of these units are in an HOA that has the mixed use, some are not, and the ones that have mixed use have an office that is usually on the first floor. And then upstairs, there's an apartment. And some of them have detached stairwells. Some of them you enter through your own private stairwell. And there's not a lot of these units. In fact, they are a very rare type of property in the menu of options that you have in the city of Boulder. We're currently in a commercial real estate slowdown, or collapse, if you will. But if you want live at home or live work type situations, it's sort of in a category of its own. There are a few options as well in the I almost said Hollywood. What's the name? Holiday. In the Holiday neighborhood. Okay, this is my post Black Rock City brain. In the Holiday neighborhood, just north of there are a few options there too. And then Uptown has a few options as well. And there may be some stuff out in Steel Yards. And that's sort of it for... At least off the top of my memory, there's not like a gazillion choices for this type of product. And we we took on this listing. It's a repeat client, and we didn't help them acquire it originally, but we were more than happy to help them sell it. They had a tenant in there, and when we looked at it, it definitely needed a bunch of work. The carpets were dirty, the walls needed to be repainted, and our seller did all the work. So
yeah.
Part of our listing process is we do a consultation with the seller. We put together a PowerPoint with photos, and room by room, we'll tell you what we think you should do. Do you have to do any of those things? No. But we strongly advise you consider doing them because they will shorten the time on market. They will increase the sale price. And that also includes staging. We think it's a really good idea to stage. Even though staging can be expensive, it helps people get a sense of how the home lives. And there's a saying, and I think it's true, buyers lack imagination. And most buyers, and when you walk in, it's hard to imagine exactly how this might be laid out if all you're looking at is an empty box. There's a reason that professional home builders and large home builders in particular have a model home. And the model home's never empty. The model home is full of furniture in exactly the right positioning to show you how the home flows and how you might live in there. So that's why you stage. And our seller did all these things and did a fantastic job. And the home is also so rare and unique on the market that it's going to take a little bit longer to sell, even if it's priced aggressively, because the pool of potential buyers is smaller than, let's say, a standard 4-bedroom, 2-bath, or 5-bedroom, 3-bath, the classic 2-story, straight up the fairway model that appeals to 90% of home buyers is very easy to sell compared to something that is of limited market appeal. And it just means sometimes waiting. And what's really interesting is that the buyer came along that eventually acquired the property, first with an offer that was contingent, and their home was not on the market even. And
that's right. Yeah. Okay.
We declined it because we were basically taking the risk of 2 closings, completely risk of 2 closings. Like it hadn't been even, they hadn't even marketed it. And when they told me the market price, I was a little bit surprised at how high it was, and I was a little concerned that the contingent property was going to not sell either, and we would be sitting there waiting for a contingent property to sell. And so our seller wanted to keep the conversation going, and we did, but we politely declined their offer and explained why. And they said, okay, that's fine. And they sort of went dark for a while, and eventually they came back. And they came back now with their home on the market, under contract, strong offer in place, which we reviewed, and we then advise our seller to take it. And their team that represented the buyer, they were a husband and wife, did a great job in communication. I would call them old school. Like the younger agents seem to like texting, and it's hard to get them on the phone. Not all of them.
I got some texts from this one though. From
True.
these agents. Yeah.
True, but when it comes time to negotiate and establish trust and work on difficult things, they pick up the phone. And we do too. That's really important to get the tenor of someone's voice. Even easier. Better, it's just easier. Let's have a conversation and not just write long emails at each other. Let's actually talk about how we solve these problems. Sometimes people just need to feel heard, including myself. You'd probably say, Hamish,
we're all human, man. Yeah.
You do most of the talking, so yeah. So there were a bunch of, so once we were under contract, the inspection showed a few unexpected issues. Window that didn't close completely or properly, and surprisingly, a break in the sewer line, and that required us to escrow. There's some deal points that were tricky, and normally a sewer line break on an association is completely covered by the association. But in this particular case, it depends on how many units the sewer line in question serves. If it's just 1 or 2 units, it's actually split between the owners of those 1 or 2 units. But if it's more than that, it's shared with the association or some rule. And so we had to get our head around that. Buyer and seller teams had to get their head around that, had to advise the clients on how to deal with that. And everyone worked our way together on solving these problems so that everyone's comfortable with how we handle it. And kudos to the buying team. I think they did a great job, and I think that kudos to our seller for prepping the property properly and for treating the inspection objections professionally, and all of the inspection objections were legitimate. So when you throw a bunch of illegitimate or nonsense inspection objections, most sellers will just tell you to go pound sand. But when you actually object to things that are real, that they have to address with another buyer, you typically get real results, right? I once had a buyer, and I represented them, and the inspector called out the waviness in the hardwood floor. And this waviness was visible and obvious from the start of the deal. And I told them that the likely reaction is going to be negative if we put this in the inspection objection, but we didn't really have much else to object to. So they're like, put it in there anyway. Let's see what happens. And I'm like, okay. And I got a phone call from that agent that was like, I got such a talking down to that
I love being patronized, right?
I got yelled at. I'm just going to put it that way. Who the hell do you think you are? Your buyers are idiots and are ridiculous, and I can't believe that you actually objected to this. We're not doing anything. Zero. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I hear you. They felt it was legitimate. They are upset about the floor waviness. Yes, it's visible. Yes, you're right. Yes, they should have factored that into their, just at this point when somebody's just yelling at you, what are you supposed to do? Like, they're not going to give you $1 for it. So you might as well just agree with them that, and then look for something else. I hear you on the floor, but, can we get something for the old furnace, or can we get something for the door threshold that's loose, or can you fix a couple of these handyman? Can we work on something else so I can go back to my side with something? Because if I just tell them that, all of what you just told me, how do you think they're going to react?
Yeah.
Like we got to, of course, that's the filter, right? That an agent does. The last thing you want your agent to do is tell you what they actually said. Because if I actually told our client.
It's that Key and Peele, like anger translator. Have you seen that skit?
Oh, I have not seen it.
Oh, it's a really good one. Key and Peele. One's Obama, one's like Obama's like actual voice.
Oh,
and so
got
it's
it.
like screaming, and then the translator's like, I hear you and understand,
Yeah,
it's really
that's
good.
pretty much what you have to do. And it's really the role of the agent to de-escalate the situation, diffuse it, and get results. And so for sure I didn't tell the buyers at the time that this particular agent was verbally abusive to them and to me. Instead I said they just don't feel that that's a real issue, as expected, and move forward. But it's really hard, actually, because when somebody's yelling at you unprofessionally, which you would be surprised happens in real estate, it's hard to not want to, like, you
want to get some pain, or like get something back, right?
Yeah, well, Eckhart Tolle called this the pain body. And when somebody is speaking to you from their own pain body for whatever triggered trauma, childhood trauma reasons, it activates yours. And so it is really hard to not want to go into it with them verbally, right?
Yeah.
When somebody punches you emotionally, you want to, like, your instinct, if you have all this latent stuff, is to punch back. And it's not the right answer if you want to get the deal done. And in the best interest of your clients, it doesn't serve them. So don't do those things. You may want
another note too, or go ahead.
One of the secret tricks I learned is that you should hang up on yourself. When you feel like it's escalating like this, you should start talking as in response. I hear you, agent, but, and then say something mid-sentence and just disconnect the phone. Because that way you could buy yourself some time to calm down.
That's pretty good, actually. You could be honest too. You know what? I heard myself there, and I just needed to hang up. That was not going to go down a good route.
You could. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
You could just hang up but people get really reactive if they think you hung up on them. If you hang up on yourself, they're not quite as upset.
It's pretty smart. I will say, we had there was an objection on the screens, and the buyers wanted a. I don't know. There must be some mythical knowledge or something about screens where everybody assumes them to be extremely expensive. Maybe this is hidden knowledge, but McGuckins generally repairs screens for windows and doors at a very reasonable price. I think there was a pretty intense ask for a credit that was at least 10 times beyond the actual repair cost. So
yeah.
Well, that's smart seller for being like, oh, that's a bit steep. I'm going to investigate that one.
Yeah. Well, it's just an unknown, right? So risk has a price, and unknown has a price. If it's known, the price drops a lot. So, and screens are a classic illustration where it costs $100 to fix it. But if you don't know it costs $100 to fix it, you might as well throw $1,000 or $2,000 on there, because maybe you need a custom screen guy to come out and build new screens for you and spend 2 days doing it, and you just don't know that it's that cheap. So remember, the risk premium for uncertainty exists for everything.
Yeah. That's a good point too. And I guess yeah, screens have that mythic fog around them where if it's custom, it's custom. But I don't think I'm almost tempted to do like a DIY House Einstein, how to cut screens, but there's not at all a use for
Don't
that.
do it. That's not a good use. Please don't do it. I know I'm sure somebody else can find a YouTube video on how to fix screens, but
All of a sudden, you're in the morning just watching House Einstein on Instagram, like, I'm paying this guy for this. And I'm just there, hey guys.
the more typical area where the risk premium for uncertainty exists is around foundation repairs and sewer line repairs, because without getting actual estimates, you just don't know. And both of those fields are full of fraudsters that come in with inflated repairs. And if they think you're desperate, like if your sewer line is backing up, the cost to replace it will be 2 or 3 times what it really should have cost you, because that's unfortunately how some of these companies. It's also, people freak out about sewage backing up into their house, and so instead of costing you $10,000 to replace a sewer line, it suddenly costs you $30,000. And I've also seen buyers demand $30,000 without even an estimate to replace a sewer line, because they now have the seller hostage. And the answer to that is we should scope sewer lines in advance, even newer homes, clean them, scope them in advance, provide the inspection report to the buyer before they schedule their inspections, so you're not going to be caught off guard by a minor sewer line repair, which you'd be surprised how often minor sewer line repairs come into the deal, particularly since scoping became the norm.
Commonplace? Yeah.
It's like the colonoscopy of real estate deals. Like it's expect to get scoped. Literally, you're going to get it, and if you don't do it, do it preventatively, and you're probably going to have far less pain, particularly in certain neighborhoods and locations where sewer line repairs or root intrusions are very common. Mm-hmm. All right, we should move on, Hamish.
We ought to. Yeah, we ought to. What's next? Oh, market at a glance. Yeah,
we're gonna cover this pretty fast and superficially, because if you really want market advice, it's relative to your specific real estate situation, and that is granular and actionable. But a glance at market conditions is nice to know, and we are more detailed than you will get in most online services for what's going on in the market. But it's still not enough to be actionable, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it other than I want to get caught up. Because we're going to be putting together a newsletter soon where I might go into a little more detail. Let's talk about the city of Boulder. Let me make sure we have the city right. So we're gonna start with the city of Boulder, and then we're gonna do the county, and we're gonna cover both detached and attached dwellings. So in the city of Boulder, and this is data through the end of August. Today is August 10th, and that's about enough time for this data to be accurate. And the reason I say that is, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a certain statistical agency that's been doing a lot of revisions lately, and they're massive. And so they do an early number.
Attention. Yeah.
They do an early number, and then they do a number months later that turns out to be totally different. And so that's not the case with real estate, but the numbers do change. And if you try to get the data on the first day of the month, you're going to see some pretty big revisions to that data by the 10th of the month. But my experience is by 10 days in, the data is mostly accurate. Real estate agents are supposed to have updated the MLS within 3 business days of the transaction closing. So even the slaggards should have gotten everything in by 10 days. So I feel reasonably confident that the numbers at day 10 are okay. Maybe even day 7 might be okay. But day 1, 2, 3, not accurate. All right, so new listings in the city of Boulder. Last month, 115 new single-family houses hit the market. That's up about 1%. Total inventory year over year is up 12%. There were 372 single-family houses on the market. And then under contract, I mean, by the way, that's a pretty high number, right? 372, up 12%, but that's been up year after year after year. We have at least 3 years, 5 years of rising inventory. Inventory really started rising in earnest in 2022. So 3 strong years, and now this is the 4th year. There's 4 bubbles of year-over-year rising inventory. And I think this might be the last, by the way. I think the cycle may be over, but we'll see, depending on what happens. I mean, prices have come down, and rates are projected lower in the future, finally.
Everybody's hoping, yeah.
Everyone's, well, honestly, I don't mind the lower prices, and I don't mind the slower conditions. I would prefer this market than Bidding War Central, where it's like, it's insane.
People are catch a breath, yeah.
And the risk of overpaying is much higher versus I'd rather people pay fair market value. I want both buyers and sellers to
get good deals.
Be in a more balanced market. Our work is more effective too. But all right, so with that said, let's keep going. Under contract, also known as pending sales, 70 houses last month, which is flatlined from a year ago. 0% change. Number of closings, and this is a bit of a surprise for some of you. Closings were up 15.4%. 75 houses closed last month, and 15.4% year-over-year increase, which we knew because pendings were up last month. So pendings are a look into the future. And right now, by the way, pendings are flat. So next month may not be quite as this month, meaning may not have quite a bit of a pop, but we'll see. Sale price, because keep in mind, pending, there's also a bunch of deals that may terminate. And there also may be some deals that went under contract the first week and closed the same month. So pendings are a little bit of a tricky bag to interpret. Okay, median sale price, down almost 7% in the city of Boulder, 1.235, 1,235,000 was the median sale price. And by the way, the peak of that, right, if you look back in the charts, the peak median sale price was February of 2025, this year. Isn't that interesting? Huh. And the reason is because of a small sample size, right?
Right. City
fewer homes, right? Skew, okay, and it's so median sale price in the city is more reflective of what price range is selling and less reflective of what average prices across the broad market's doing, because we know, for example, that the high end is seeing a lot of price compression, but under 1.2 almost no price compression. In fact, prices probably have risen. Dollar per square is a good indication, but suffers the same fate because of small sample size. And dollar per square in the city of Boulder was $495 last month, down 11.3%. Okay, let's talk about attached dwellings. And as I was just talking to a buyer yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, attached dwellings, townhomes and condos, duplexes, those are really two markets in Boulder. There's the student market, and then there's the market for the rest of us. And if I had to guess, the student market is probably 70% of what's out there for condos and townhomes, although they're building a lot more. I'll say that. So that's changing. Maybe it's dropping to 60% student, 40% non-student. But of course, there's also tons of new student projects like the new Millennium Building, or the building replacing CU South that's coming. So let's just keep that in mind when you're considering these statistics. New listings down 25%. Only 80 new listings hit the market, and that's because the market, everyone's gotten the message, it's in free fall. And that's year over year, 25%. Homes for sale, up 6.3%. That's total inventory, 286. I think that's available inventory. Sorry, let me be clear. Not total inventory, 286. And then under contract, 52, which is an increase of 33% from a year ago. So a bit of a spike. People are starting to take advantage of slightly lower rates or maybe the more selection. Like I think savvy people are starting to jump back into the market. Not investors, though. Rates are still too high for investors. It's primary home buyers or people buying CU Kitty condos. Closings were down 10.2%, so 44 closed last month. And then median sale price up 2.1%, $413,500. Again, also subject to that small sample size problem.
Yeah.
Well, also CU skew, but small sample size problem. And then the median dollar per square plummeted 13.4%, down to $432. Okay, let's hit Boulder County and do the same data set.
The same too, single family and attached.
Yeah, we'll cover it both. We're going fast enough that I feel like this is worth doing.
I think so.
Okay.
It is nice to see kind of like a broader, this is, I call it like in-law at the dinner table chat, you know, because it's not specific to anybody's specific needs, but, that housing market, huh? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of when I used to work on Wall Street and I'd go to my parents' dinner parties and all of their friends just wanted like hot stock tips. And I'm like, I don't do that. I don't have hot. In fact, I think all of the things we have a strong buy on are garbage stocks. So like, I'm like an associate. I'm not the head analyst on this deal. And I don't get to make the determinations of what's a good buy or not. But boy, they thought I had all the inside knowledge at the time. And I'm like, I don't. What I tell agents, by the way, is that you should always have some sort of pocket deal. And I don't mean like you have a hidden deal, but you can be on the MLS. But you should have, when somebody asks you what's going on in the real estate market, if you're an agent, you should say generally what's going on in the market and then segue to a deal, to something that's interesting. It could be a closed deal. It could also be something that you think has got a lot of potential. It gives you something to talk about that's way more exciting than general market statistics. I need to call it something other than pocket deal because that's confusing because there's a different thing that most people think of as pocket deals. So
that's true. Yeah.
Maybe talkable deal is probably a better term.
Deal. Yeah. Notable deal.
Table topic deal. That's really what it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. Detached new listings, 365 new listings hit the market for single-family houses last month in Boulder County. Boulder County also includes the city of Boulder, by the way. It includes Longmont. It includes Louisville. It includes Niwot. It includes Lafayette.
Is Lyons up there?
Netherland. It includes Lyons. It includes Allens Park. Okay, like it is a big part of. It's a large area, so keep that in mind. New listings down 4.5%. Available inventory up 16.9%. There were over 1,000 single-family houses on the market last month, and that's up 16.9% year over year. Under contract, up 11.5%. 281 homes were under contract, and then we had 292 closings, up 17.7%. That's a pretty big spike. So both pending and closings were up countywide. That's sort of indicative, in my mind, of a market that may have bottomed and has started to recover. I think that's what we're seeing. I'm typically pretty hesitant to make such a strong call on only a month or two of data, but it appears to be a market where the second half is more strong than the first half, or maybe than the first quarter. I still think it's going to be relatively short-lived because the fall is not like a crazy time of year, or the winter is.
It's not very glamorous. Yeah.
Look, this could be a really good time to snap up a deal because inventory's high and sellers are capitulating, and there's a good chance prices are going to be stronger next year. I don't know. No one has a crystal ball, but for sure we're seeing prognostications of lower rates in the future. If your job is secure and you find a killer house that suits your needs, you may want to put getting a great deal as your second priority versus getting a great house. Because that's always been the challenge, is finding a house worth buying. And here's a little secret: most of them are not worth buying. Okay. I know that doesn't sound very good, does it?
Yeah, so motivating.
Look, I'm very selective.
Go house shopping.
I'm very selective, and I think all of my buyers should be selective. Our job is very different when we're representing you as a seller. Our job is to help you maximize sale price, make the best possible presentation, make sure it's priced to market. We work in all price ranges. Like, it's a very different philosophy and mentality on the listing side. But this is I think it's a great market for buyers right now in general, particularly higher up in the price food chain. Okay, days on market, 51. Well, no, we don't cover days on market. I just talked about it, but we haven't for the other ones. I just said it, so I'll keep going. Median days on market, 51. I don't necessarily think this data is accurate because people will relist property, and that's why I usually don't talk about median days on market, but that's what it is. 51, up 21.4%. And the median sale price, $844,500. That's up 2.4%. And price per total square foot, $329, down 2.9%. So kind of mixed message on median sale price versus price per square foot. I would kind of take that to mean prices are sort of flat year over year across the whole county for the median home, right? Like, how useful is that? If you're serious about buying or selling, pick up the phone and call us if you're not represented by somebody else, and we'll drill down to your specific price range, your specific location. Doing it this way is table topic. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about attached dwellings. New listings, 150 hit the market last month, down almost 18%. Homes for sale, 526 Condos, townhomes, duplexes were on the market last month. That's an increase of 14.3% year over year. Under contract, 89 went under contract last month. That is a 12.7% increase from a year ago. Closings, there were only 98 that closed last month, down 10%. And sale price, the median sale price, $466,500, and that's an increase of 1.4%. And on a dollar per square foot basis, it was $354, which is down 1.9%. So the same pattern.
Is attached?
Yeah, same pattern.
Okay, yeah.
The median sale price is up slightly. The price per square foot is down slightly. So I got to think about, what does that mean? I would take it to mean prices are pretty much flat from a year ago. But hey, there's a lot more on the market, 14.3% more than a year ago. Pendings were also up. Closings were down. That to me signals opportunistic market conditions.
Yeah,
And,
have to
and
agree.
I think that, do you have anything to add to that whole spiel, Hamish, on market conditions?
It really just comes down to, this is mostly tabletop talk. I don't have much else to add. Our buyers, at the very least, are not in any rush, and are fairly comfortable, I think, where they are right now. So they're kind of just waiting to see what happens, largely.
I mean, there's quite a few buyers like that are not feeling pressure, and that's the better position to be in. Frankly, I would much rather work with buyers that are patient and professional and conscientious and courteous and very clear about their needs. But let's move on to our shameless self-promotion segment, Hamish, before I go too far down the road.
Good deal.
And we're about to list a new property in Fort Collins. It's more toward the entry level of the market. Hamish, I haven't been there yet. You've already checked it out. Maybe you can kind of walk us through what you think of the place.
The seller initially rented this place, if I'm not mistaken, and then put in an offer. And the whole rent before you buy thing is fantastic to do, but I think also what proves it as a good home to buy is if it's a home that gets rented fairly quickly. So if it was good enough to draw you in to rent it, then it's probably good enough to be a decent buy, therefore in demand. I think it's in a decent location. I don't know if Fort Collins
How many bedrooms and baths?
I believe it's a 2-bed, 1-bath, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah. Oh boy, we don't have a lot of detail. We're sort of winging this on what the details.
It's
just It's a new listing at the entry level of the market in the southern part of Fort Collins. And I don't do a ton of Fort Collins listings.
You know what I do know for sure?
Go ahead.
Yeah. The garage is insulated and has had a little bit of paint on it. There's an AC unit for the garage. It's a very nice garage. I was looking at it from a car standpoint more than anything.
Okay.
New stove. Yeah.
Okay. I personally don't do a ton of Fort Collins. It's sort of a deal every other year or so. Loveland, Berthoud, those sort of northern locations we cover. And we mostly do these types of deals from a relationship perspective. And we know the seller really well. Stand-up gentlemen. And we appreciate their trust in us in listing the property. If you're shopping for an entry-level property from an investment perspective or for yourself, this is a pretty good option. And reach out to us for more details. We can't share it yet because it's not even close to being on the MLS yet. And then the other shameless self-promotion that we'd like to share with you is one of our buyers. They've been shopping for, I would say, almost a year at this point.
Almost, yeah.
And Hamish, what would you say is their sweet spot?
Location-wise, they're looking...
Let's start with price, and then let's go down to property type and then location.
Price, I think we're like right between probably $750 to $950 on the high end. Sure. There could be a little bit more room, but the house has got to be wicked cool. And then location-wise, we've been showing a ton in the general like Heatherwood neighborhood, a little bit South Gun Barrel, and then more recently we're checking out. Oh, I'm trying to remember the cross streets, but it's South Boulder. You know that curvy road that kind of goes up towards Lafayette that goes past Old
Road?
Town Louisville? No, not J.
Curvy. Oh, 287?
No,
Kirby
it's
Road.
to the left
What are you
of
talking
287. Maybe it's not Kirby, but it's the one that goes, you take it to get to Old Town if you're coming from the east.
42.
Maybe 42. Yeah, anyhow. Where our own old McKinley Ave listing was. We showed a house right there not too long
Sure.
ago, and that's a pretty good spot. So they're kind of,
So that's Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville area.
What's it called? Apple Via Appia.
Via Appia.
That's what you're thinking
It's
about.
not Via Appia. No, it's not.
Oh, you're
I'm going to
killing
have to
me.
find it. Yeah, I know.
All right. All right.
This is
Well-
top tier listening right now.
I think they're sort of agnostic a little bit on location, like gun barrel neighborhoods, like Heatherwood. Possibly also consider Louisville neighborhoods.
Courtesy Road.
Courtesy Road. And likely below 950, although they have looked occasionally higher. I think they're more comfortable below $1 million. And ranch-style houses have caught their eye. Homes that don't have mobility challenges for people, so probably not a lot of stairs. And something that has a spiritual vibe to it might work really well. We actually have two buyers, Hamish, that are sort of overlapping here. There's another one that we've recently started working with, and first-time home buyers started to look more towards Lafayette. So similar in terms of what types of properties might work for them, but a little lower on the food chain in terms of pricing. Probably would be more comfortable in the 600 to 800 range. So they're not completely overlapping, but there's a little bit of overlap between these two sets of buyers. Both lovely people, both looking for their personal residences. They're not investors. And if you have something that suits either of them, reach out to us. We are at houseeinstein.com. Happy to give you a free valuation on your property if you're not working with a listing agent. Also happy to see if we could play matchmaker. And if we're playing matchmaker, there's a bit of a commission savings, so you'll save some money for having reached out to us. Our buyers and sellers will save a little money. It's a win-win for everybody. So consider it. And let's move on. And we're back. We just took a break to get ourselves a drink and check our email and unfortunately also check the news. And this is In the News, the segment where we talk about typically real estate related news. And we just learned about the Charlie Kirk shooting and likely assassination. It's not clear if it's true that he's dead or not, but clearly was shot. And that was really disruptive to watch that on
you got to see
immediate
that.
two angles of the shot taking place. I can't believe that I don't know how the platform screen for people uploading that sort of horrific video in real time, but we can't really talk about other news until we talk about that, even though we're not a politics podcast, even though we don't talk about mainstream events like that. It's in the news and it just hit us, and we are not going to be able to do the rest of the podcast if we don't talk about it in a way that means anything. So I just want to say that House Einstein is apolitical as an organization. Like, we work with people on all ends of the spectrum for the most part. We are deeply horrified, and I'm deeply saddened at the divisions that are happening in this country. And violence of any kind is unacceptable, period.
Yeah. I'm now checking X. There's an active shooter situation at Evergreen High School.
Which is one of our local, well, it's not really in our footprint, but very close to us. And the rhetoric, it just keeps getting louder. And when this sort of thing happens, the response is often over the top. First and foremost, our thoughts are with his family and his community. And I just don't even know where to go. I often don't like what people say in the media. I don't agree with a lot of opinions that we read and hear and watch. But one thing I believe in firmly in this country is the ability, the freedom to say what you want to say, and hopefully say it in a way that doesn't result in you being incarcerated or shot. I suppose if you're a student on a foreign visa attending, you should be careful saying things against the government.
Whether or not that's right or wrong, yeah.
Whether or not it's sort of foolish to be here and protesting, but I still support your right to protest, even though you're not an American citizen. You're here on a student visa. If I was your parent, I would be really angry at you. Like, you're there to learn. Like, this is the Indian dad in me. Like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't pay for you to go protest on the streets. I paid for you to go to school and learn, but that's neither here nor there. Charlie Kirk getting shot is deeply horrifying. And
the situation in the high school, too.
If and hopefully the high school active shooter is a false alarm. But in any event, Charlie Kirk getting shot is really bad. And the response is going to be really bad. And I think
Fanning
that
flames either direction, yeah.
That those that think the right answer is to pick up a gun and shoot somebody because they are advocating for a position you don't believe in are profoundly anti-American. Because whether you agree with people's opinions, you should support the freedom to express those opinions. Period, full stop. And I know that's weird, right? I think about the Blues Brothers movie where like they're crossing the river and the Nazis are like the Illinois Nazis are protesting, and the Blues Brothers drive through the Nazi parade, forcing all the Nazis to jump off the bridge into the river. And of course, in the movie, no one's hurt. And now the Nazis are targeted.
Implication, right?
Right, but the Nazis are targeting the Blues, like the desire to hurt those that advocate for positions that hurt our loved ones, or somehow advocate for positions that threaten our loved ones in our community is palpable. It's real, but the actual acting on those things is just horrifying. So
I added watch Blues Brothers to my task list.
I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. Oh my, there's such an age difference between us, but okay. And I'm actually quite young for having seen that movie. Most of my friends probably, it's an old movie. Like it's really a 70s, early 80s movie, which means I was like 8 years old or 7 years old when the movie came out. Okay, let's talk about other news items, although it's going to be hard to get past what we just read. Note to self, when we're in the pod, we probably should not look for
no news,
breaking news and get an immediate hot take on what's happening. But
yeah,
okay,
it's a very breaking story. Okay,
that is instant recorded. You know when this podcast was recorded. So, all right, as most people now know, the Denver Broncos have confirmed that they plan to build a new stadium at Burnham Yard. And there's a whole backstory of land acquisitions under, pseudonyms and LLCs to try to mask how the land had been acquired. But most of the land, my understanding, has already been acquired, and it's not really a surprise that this is the location. It's been talked about for at least 6 months. And it's a former Union Pacific Railroad yard. The state acquired it for $50 million in 2021. It's got 58 acres, shaped like a banana, and it also has some historic railroad buildings. It's a little bit south and to the east of the current Mile High Stadium, so it won't result in a meaningfully different drive to the new stadium. Right. I don't know how many years it'll take to build it. I'm not generally in favor. Oh, you know.
I looked into some of these things. Yeah. So, because, I mean, granted, I'm using AI, but I was like, don't we already have a stadium, yada, yada, to AI? And it's like, true, we do. It's a publicly funded one, the Empower Field. The lease for the Broncos is apparently up in 2031, which coincides with, like, the planned construction finishing of this one. It's the Walton family is funding this, and they apparently acquired, shows you how much sports I watch. They apparently acquired the Broncos for like $5 billion a couple years ago, which is like the largest, most expensive acquisition ever. But yeah, the Walton family is planning on building this. It should be done in 2031, which is when Broncos lease ends. Current Denver mayor is expecting to raise or demolish the current Empower Field and do some the typical platitude housing, mixed use zoning, standard neighborhood development deal in the existing plot of land for the Empower Field. And yeah, it's when I looked at the new location, this rail yard and the Empower, I did the whole Google Maps draw of a ruler, and it's 5,000 feet from like the start of the Burnham rail yard to the Empower Field. So it's not that far off. I bet there's going to be, some infrastructure challenges and getting all the people to and fro, and probably a bit of a stimulus to that particular area of Denver.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Empower Field and the amount of capital going into the construction. $4 billion is what's estimated. Will be interesting. And generally speaking, my understanding is the taxpayer incentives are often not recouped for this type of large-scale stadium construction. So happy to see that others are funding beyond municipalities, right? Like I know the state bought it $50 million, but I'm glad to see that a lot of that money is coming from private sources, because public use, I mean, just look at what happened in Broomfield with the bonds issued to build
First Bank Center.
Like, it was horrible. What a horrible waste of money. So I don't think that's the case with the Denver Broncos. Like, the Broncos aren't going anywhere. That's really good news. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about professional sports. Leah is really into professional sports, so we do watch them. But, oh, yeah, she's our sports head in our family. And I just, in my mind, I just think about it like, I really wish I owned a company that gets all these tax breaks and people tattoo the logo on their arm, and I could sell merch, like billions of dollars of merch. And there are all these IRS tax breaks too for owning a professional sports team. And so it's a private corporation that is our Denver Broncos. So for sure subsidized in so many ways. But, there's a long legacy of professional sports in the United States. I will watch them. I used to pay some attention to it when I was in high school, but very little now, other than when Leah wants to watch something, I'll keep her company. And I will get into it a little bit.
Pastime. Yeah.
Sure. And it's really weird how the human brain will start saying, our Denver Broncos. It's our team. And not really.
That's what's never really stuck with me. Is I can get behind it if the players have to come from Colorado because they're the Colorado team, but players are traded and back in I'm yeah, that makes sense. It's a competitive sport, but I just don't understand the allegiance side of sports. Is I'm a diehard Broncos fan, even though the players come and go like anybody's business, and the team is traded between private owners. It's But there is some fun to it. I got into hockey. I could watch and follow hockey pretty reasonably, at least when I was dating somebody who was into it. Seems to be when my interest in sports shows up, is when my love interest is also interested in it. Yeah.
I've got so many other things going on in my life, but it's fun to kick back, have a drink, watch the game with your loved ones. Go to the game, even more rah-rah fun. Going to a CU game is a lot of fun. So, it definitely brings the community together. It's not all dollars and cents, but we'll see how this plays out. Lots of redevelopment opportunities all around the new stadium. It amenitizes that whole area, and the area needed to be redeveloped. Nothing was going on there. So I think it'll be a win-win. We'll see. Let's move on to our next story, and that is a new energy code specific to the state of Colorado that's layered on top of the IECC code, which is the International Code Council. So every few years, building code updates, and we typically follow IECC, but the state of Colorado has layered on additional electrification or energy efficiency standards that are set to take place in 2026, and they set the bare minimum that you can have. Of course, there's a little bit of a debate over whether this hurts people or helps people, but it's a question of can we afford it or not, of course. And generally speaking, I'm in favor of energy efficiency, and having heat pumps in the house, I can see how much better they work and how much more local control you have, meaning like room level control. But that just passed. So we're going above IECC standards in the state of Colorado. It's a done deal. Get used to it. Not much more to say about that. What do you have to say, Hamish?
I'd say my hot take is I can hear kind of the critics. Some critics are probably in the camp of it's hogwash electrification and this stuff is pointless and doesn't actually benefit the environment. To that I say, check it out. And then there's also the people that are probably like, we need housing. We shouldn't be restricting the types of housing we're building. I think, we've talked about this too. I don't think there's a realistic speed of which we could build houses that will outpace the demand. There's always going to be a demand and shortage, pretty likely, at least in my near-term view. And so this is
here in Colorado. On the Front Range, by the way, not on the western
Denver
slope.
Metro Front Range,
Only, and I would say not the entire Front Range. I would say like starting in Denver into Fort Collins, Colorado Springs. Now that Space Command is relocating, totally different market down there. And if the military presence has continued to be reduced, that's not going to be true in the future. And for sure, Pueblo is not. And is it Pueblo?
Oh my gosh!
I went to Pueblo.
I went to Pueblo, actually. That's almost a carve-out. But no, I don't think it necessarily helps the whole, affordability and housing shortage that we've got, sure, but it is a long-term sensible decision to be making. It's in Colorado, I don't usually see as, the trend leader in this stuff, and considering HR1 and the Big Beautiful Bill and all these things, it's counteractive to the larger federal administration's long-term plans as far as energy efficiency and things go. But I think overall net positive long-term. That's my take. Yeah.
I agree in general. The one thing that I just find frustrating about and the push for carbon efficiency in the city of Boulder in particular, right? So this is a little different, but tangentially related. And that is the complete disregard for embedded carbon costs. Like the cheapest, if you're looking at carbon emissions, the cheapest thing to do is to not deconstruct, tear down, demolish existing buildings. It creates jobs, but construction is so wasteful, and the amount of carbon that goes into building new homes, new buildings, new stadiums is massive compared to reutilizing, repurposing. That's the cheapest from if you're looking at carbon inputs and carbon outputs. And for some reason, even our beloved city of Boulder just ignores it completely. And for example, the South Boulder Rec Center that they would like to stop maintaining entirely, and with no plans to replace it, which basically deprives all of Table Mesa of their rec center, is morally offensive, first of all. And second, their arguments that it's too old to maintain. It's not that old. And it could be repaired. It could be taken care of. And for some reason, it's not. And then we have goals to reduce our carbon emissions as a city that completely ignore embedded carbon costs. And it's just, I find it, I don't know. It's sort of the same make-believe, magical thinking that affects people when they're talking about the homelessness issue in Boulder. Magical thinking is not getting us there. Let's be realistic, but who am I to question the powers that be?
It's I think it's best laid intentions, poor execution type of deal, or you didn't really think that through, but I like the mindset,
I mean, I like that
leads to frustration in the public.
I like that.
Right?
Sometimes you need a little push, right? Like with electrification, there are people that are so fixated on gas appliances that they can't get past it. Their mindset is, hey, I tried an electric stove in the 80s and 90s, and man, did they suck.
And those are actually pretty efficient too. I've got a soapbox on that even.
But there's a whole bunch of reasons they sucked, and people didn't like it. They like seeing the flame. They like seeing instant changes in temperature. And the vast majority of those people have never tried induction. And induction's expensive, so I get it. But if you have the ability to go induction, it is so remarkably better. And not just from a cooking or gourmet chef perspective, but from an emissions release perspective in your home. Even if you've got a great exhaust fan, you're still going to get a whole bunch of byproducts of carbon, of hydrocarbon burning. You're burning hydrocarbons in your house, and you think that's better. It's just sort of, It's sort of, and then they're like, well, yeah. I mean, I can go on and on about this.
I know, right?
So there is a role for regulations to lead societal change. I just feel like sometimes they're a little heavy-handed. But my favorite part about this article, and we'll get to that right now, is that, let me read this to you. Colorado's Energy Code Board met for more than a year to trim and tailor the 2024 IECC code. The panel included affordable housing experts, local officials, union leaders, architects, sustainability advocates, and a home builder. A year, they just sat in that meeting every day. Yeah. They just, for more than a year, they sat there to trim and tailor.
Just a little grammatical Easter egg.
we're just having fun with grammar. I doubt they sat in a meeting for a year, but it's pretty funny how that was written.
Yeah, they're not getting paid enough.
They're not, right? No kidding. That poor lone home builder having to sit there with the union leaders to talk about whether we electrify or not. So there's something off about that article, but there you go. Let's talk about some more fun stuff, although maybe not fun for the person in the story, but apparently a Boulder man was slashed by a bear while walking their dog.
Great segue.
So that's in the news, and a good reminder that if you're shopping for a home in Boulder, you may want to consider that much of the city of Boulder and other parts of Colorado infringe on the wildland-urban interface. In addition to fire risk, we have a lot more wildlife in recent years. We have fewer hunters, less hunting zones, and we have had our predators that maintain healthy populations of prey were largely eliminated. And so we've seen a resurgence of all sorts of wildlife, mountain lions, bears, coyotes, and frankly, soon to be wolves. If you look at where the wolves are, they're right on the border of Boulder County. Like they are coming. So
one died.
Really?
I didn't do it. Yeah, when I was searching for news stuff, one of them, it looks like it got hit by a car.
Oh, that's sad. I mean, the wolves are such a controversial issue that I'm not even going to talk further about it, other than to say they coming. As our CU, we coming is the CU talk, right? For dear Lord, the grammatically incorrect we coming. For our football team, but the wolves are also coming. So, and this particular bear apparently took offense to a man and his dogs. When I was growing up, I was told, and this was part of school, secondary education, that if you see a bear, you move slowly away from it. And if you see a bear with her cub, you are at high risk of being attacked. Like you really, they are hyper protective. The mama bear thing there's a reason it's a thing. And this is why, like, you do not want to be anywhere near a mama bear and her cub.
The reason we're glib is the man is okay. From this article, the injuries were only superficial. Probably have a cool story to tell about the scar on your back for the rest of your life. Very glad the dude got to walk away.
He had a superficial scratch, but somehow it made the news, so we thought that was fun.
Slashed is a great headline. Shout out.
They're so
KDVR.
So salacious. So there's two more articles that we're going to put into the show notes that are really kind of similar. And one is a real estate agent. So this is in Yahoo Finance. And it's frankly very tabloidy, right? It's an article about how surprised a buyer was because the realtor talked them out of buying a home. This Tennessee couple was shopping for a lake house, and their own agent advised them to pump the brakes, don't buy, wait because they think prices are going to fall. And then there's another article that says agents are experiencing economic nausea and pulling out of deals at home buyers are experiencing economic nausea, pulling out of deals at a record rate. Why are so many buyers suddenly canceling contracts? Why are they skittish? And they both kind of have the same tone, right? Like a little bit of shock that agents actually would advise their clients to be smart about their decision. And that should not be a shock. That's what your agent's job is if they're doing their job right, and that's to advise you to the best of their ability. And sometimes the right answer is to not buy or to not sell. And if what they say to you is it's always a good time to buy or sell, go find a better agent. And we'll leave the link so you can enjoy this really tabloid-style writing.
Totally.
And for the last article, I just want to add that in Colorado, the buyer has all the cards once you're under contract. Sellers do not have an automatic right to terminate. And so you're sort of at the mercy of a buyer that hopefully has integrity, didn't put a property under contract when they weren't confident, because they have so many outs. And if they exit the contract, they taint your product. They taint your listing. People immediately assume something's wrong with the house. They never assume something was wrong with the buyer. And in fact, we just learned of a deal recently here on our team where the buyer was second in line in a bidding war, and so they lost out on the house. And the first buyer decided after putting it under contract they didn't like the commute time, so they came back to our buyer, our agent's buyer, and our agent decided, there's just too much uncertainty. They don't feel good about it anymore. And so they decided, despite being in a bidding war, they no longer wanted it either. And so this property almost certainly is going back to market. And just remember that human nature is very easily influenced by our peers. And as a seller, you should consider that the first buyer may not be the one that finishes the deal, and treat every buyer with a lot of care and a lot of transparency and with great communication, because they can flake out very easily on many exits in the contract.
Yeah. And my quick note on the first article, never saw that one coming. Their real estate agent talked them out of buying a lake house. These buyers went to Reddit because they were so jarred that their agent told them not to buy a house. Those poor buyers, I want to know what agents they've worked with in the past. 'Cause that shouldn't be a rare, kudos thing. That's just my soapbox, my hot take. But wow, yeah. That's all.
All right. I mean, I agree. It's just sort of shocking that they were so triggered by a buyer telling them they shouldn't buy. They're like, no, we want to buy. Let's go work with the click a button agent. They'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Hamish, let's talk about carve-outs. I think you should lead.
Yeah.
Tell me about morning cocktails and your brother in town.
Yeah, I think I teased this really poorly, but my brother came into town, and he runs ran and started up a distillery in New Zealand, and the
What's it
U.S.
called?
actually has 1919 Distilling.
Yeah, you can pitch it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the U.S. has really strict alcohol importing laws, so my brother has had a hard time getting stateside. So if you are going to New Zealand, check him out. He's North Island only, very small, batch style, and he's of course all things liquor and super into it. Now
Why is it called 1919?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Osmond. That's the year that New Zealand voted against prohibition. So they actually had it up for vote. They never actually enacted prohibition, but that was the year that New Zealand said, no thanks. So yeah, that's the kind of founding story. I could go on and on, but my brother's big into booze, and me personally, not really, aside from a binge night or something. I don't really recreationally drink. And so he was really excited that Colorado is apparently home to the largest liquor store in the country, Dave Co. Liquors, which I didn't know. He takes me there, and we get the shopping cart, and he starts just grabbing things and chucking it in, and things like vermouth and Campari, vermouth rosso, dry vermouth, mostly those, all sorts of different bitters and things. And he's like, congrats, you're on the hook for this, but after you buy it, you'll have the ability to make pretty much any cocktail you want to make. I'm like, great, thanks. So anyways, I ended up biting the bullet and doing that. But we've been making a couple cocktails, and my absolute favorite so far has to be an espresso martini, and I use a rum instead of a vodka. And they are so yummy and delicious, especially when you add some simple syrup. And it was just wow, I instead of a coffee every morning, how about just an espresso martini? It really fills that functional alcoholic vibe, that image.
Sure.
So,
Let's all become functional alcoholics. That sounds like
exactly.
a great idea.
Let's pickle ourselves. So, yeah, that was really, it wasn't ever a serious thought or anything, but those espresso martinis are great fun, and yeah, just really enjoyable. So I've built or made a few Negronis and things like that. Not a fan at all. Super bitter. They do the trick if the trick is to get a buzz going. But yeah, I'm searching for a cocktail that I like that isn't just an espresso martini. And the big surprise for me was like Campari and vermouth and all these things. I just figured they were like an ingredient. I didn't realize they were also like 40% alcohol and like 30% alcohol. So I mean, these are like lose cocktails. Like, yeah, 3 ingredients of alcohol. Like, holy
People like
cow.
boozy drinks, Hamish. Welcome
Holy
to the
shit. Yeah, they
welcome
do.
to the drinking world of
Good
adulthood.
Lord.
With cocktails are boozy
Just
combinations.
powerhouses. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
that's like 4 standard drinks. Okay, shit, you know.
I-
So anyhow, that's about my Carveout. I had a great time with him here. That, you know, we went to a few dinners and a few things, but the highlight was that I'm now like getting into cocktails and things. Probably not any more than just like as a hobby, or, you know, I'm gonna stay away from the functional alcoholic side of things, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yep.
I recently read that the United States is now experiencing record low levels of alcohol consumption. So during COVID and slightly after
Yeah.
COVID, we had record highs, and now we're into record lows. And I can't tell you the number of friends I have that are experimenting with sobriety, and I think it's great. Although there are supposedly some benefits to, let's say, red wine consumption, and but at the same time, it's just so nice to see people having options like mocktails and because it's the social side that most people who give up
Totally.
drinking really like feel sadness around. They feel kind of excluded, and restaurants can charge absurd amounts of money for drinks without booze in them, so that's kind of fun, I guess.
And you can still drive home at the end of the night, which is amazing,
Right.
and safe
And-
and good. So
And you can feel great in the morning too. And I don't know how empathetic you feel, but if I'm hanging out with a bunch of people drinking and I'm not,
Totally,
I
I get
actually
that.
I start to feel like I've got a buzz on because they just relax and I relax, like all the mirror neurons fire. So, you know, it works out. That's cool.
completely agree. Yeah. Black Rock City, where's that, Oz? What
All right,
happens there?
so I've been away for a couple of weeks. Every year I do an annual pilgrimage to a little place called Black Rock City. It's outside of Gerlach, Nevada. And it's a little event called Burning Man. And, you know, this is sort of something that most people probably don't know about me. And I'm more than happy to talk about it in a lot of detail because in addition to supporting a camp of about 75 to 80 people that is now a nonprofit of its own, it's been around for over 20 years, over 25 years. I also work as a volunteer for the organization as a Black Rock City Ranger. And let me state very clearly before I say anything else, because there are social media standards for communicating and identifying yourself as a Black Rock Ranger. I am not speaking for the Rangers or the org in any way, shape, or form in this podcast. I'm only speaking about
on
my
you.
personal experience, and I'm certainly not going to share any of the things that happen or I don't have any inside knowledge about anything that happened. I will not be sharing any stories from my personal experience rangering, but rangers are sort of, the way to think about them are more like community mediators. We are not your mom. We are not the cops. But we have an active role in helping the community get along with each other because it's a city of over 70,000 people that exists for 1 week. And we go for 2 weeks on the dried up lake bed because we help set up and then take down our space. And it has truly changed my life in terms of the art, in terms of the community, the expressions of art, the human expression, and all of the diverse ways that humanity expresses itself is mind-blowing. And the fact that you put your money away for that entirety of the experience, unless you're buying ice, that's the only thing you can buy. And it's sold, I think, pretty much at cost by the org. And they do that for food safety. So ice is really good for food and also, you know, for medical reasons, people need ice to keep their medications cold. But that's it. It's the world's largest leave no trace event, picked up down to carpet fibers and human hairs. It is unlike anything else I've ever experienced, and I was not expecting to even like it at my first burn in 2011. And it changed my life so profoundly that I'm very proud of both my community of fellow volunteers with the Rangers, as well as my particular camp of healers that are into body work and mind, body, and spirit. You know, the motto is healing one burner at a time. And this particular year was a little challenging. You probably saw it on the news. The weather was a little rough. We had some structures that suffered. There's over 1,300 camps, but of course the most salacious camp of all gets the headline. I won't even say anything past that.
You already know.
You already know. There was a birth this year on Playa. There was a death. And keep in mind, this is a very remote location. So when something bad happens, you have to meta-flight people out. And there are all sorts of challenges, I'm sure, with investigating the homicide. So it was a very interesting year and a very challenging year. I also, of course, travel with Starlink and rely on my team to help business continue to business. So we actually wrote an offer and submitted it and put a property under contract while I was on this dried up lake bed negotiating. It's a very strange hat to wear because in the past it would be very nice to disconnect entirely, but I no longer can disconnect because of my role with House Einstein and other responsibilities. So great burn. Happy to talk to anybody about it if you have more questions, and I'm now glad to be home and re-entering. A bit of a hard re-entry day after I got back, full work days.
Hit the ground running. Yeah.
I would like to just do nothing for 2 days and decompress, but that's just not an option. So we're going to decompress on the fly. And that's what's happening. That's my Carveout.
Yeah, I say it's cool to hear you speak on it and kind of having your background and the amount of time that you've spent at Burning Man year over year. I was telling you about my mom, and she fixates on certain details with Burning Man and everything, and I think everybody has kind of a stereotype in mind, but getting to not necessarily work with you, but hear you talk about it, there's a lot more to it than just the sensationalist articles that are out there and the stereotype that it has, the connotations that Burning Man has. I think it's kind of unfair to it as a whole. Being the largest Leave No Trace event thing is cool on its own right, and then 70,000 people for a temporary city. There's a lot of logistical things that are interesting aside from any other detail that's neat,
Yeah. I mean, the logistics are mind-blowing. The water, the gray water powering the city. It is really quite something to see it all come together and come apart, and being there early and watching the city get built, being part of building the city, also serving as a ranger. It's something else. It really is an amazing experience, and the epiphanies I've personally had from my experiences about my own life and trajectory in life surprised me and continue to surprise me. So I don't know what else to say about it other than I told myself I would not make Burning Man the centerpiece of the year, but it's the whole year pendulums around this one, experience out there in the desert. And now that it's over, there's a lot of time to reflect on it. And the meetings have almost already begun. The notes are being taken about what to make better for next year, how to fix things that didn't work out. The budgets, the finance, the receipts. I haven't submitted any of mine. I'm so grateful for the community of people in our camp and the Rangers too that come together to help make it all happen. It's a very interesting and unpaid
it's one of a kind,
position.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I learned how to operate a tow truck this year. I didn't
with the whole
a legit tow truck, the full-on tow truck. I took tow truck training, but I did not actually work as a tow truck driver or even as a mentee. You have to take a couple of mentee shifts and then they test you, and if you pass the test, you're officially the driver for the Rangers on the tow truck. I didn't complete the process, but I'll continue to work on it next year. But that was very cool to learn how tow trucks work. That's something. Yep.
If you ever
maybe
need
a future job.
Yeah. Natural trajectory.
If this real estate thing doesn't work out after 20-something years, I'll just go be a tow truck driver, I guess.
Hey, but the podcast will continue to come out, even if that's the case. And I think we've reached our our wrap-up stage. So, dear listeners, it's good to be back. It's good to kind of chat with y'all and go over all the things happening. We had some unfortunate news halfway through the podcast, but yeah, that's really about that to say. If you'd like what you hear, and we hope you do, check us out on all sorts of other forms of social media. House Einstein, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, LinkedIn. We have a website, houseeinstein.com. That's where that newsletter is. You'll find it'll be coming out. We'll get a third quarter newsletter, and we'll get a fourth quarter newsletter. I'm saying these things now, speaking them into existence. And if you have any real estate needs in the Colorado Front Range, Denver metro area, reach out. We'd be happy to help you out, provided you haven't already talked to another agent.
Well, you could talk to them. You just can't sign up with them. And so we deeply appreciate you, dear listeners and viewers. It means the world to us, your comments. Also, when you reach out to us to support our business and join our little happy family here at House Einstein. And we'll catch you again, hopefully next week.
Take care.